Knowledge conflict, misalignment with the world and told plainly.
From Japan with real words.
This is a podcast where I talk calmly about life struggles and family issues.
生きづらい。あるある。
I think people correct things because they wanna feel real. People correct things because they wanna give themselves some kind of shape. Maybe it's because people don't really have a fixed core. People correct things because they wanna give themselves some kind of shape. Maybe it's because people don't really have a fixed core. Having things seem to is the emptiness a little. It's surprising that things can fill the heart, but it feels temporary. Having things seem to is the emptiness a little. It's surprising that things can fill the heart, but it feels temporary. Someone said, if I can buy a sports car, I would still feel empty. I felt that no matter what happened, it's sad if you aren't there. Even winning at sports can. If I can buy a sports car, I would still feel empty, and I felt that no matter what happened, it's sad if you aren't here and there. Even you feel like there's no real. There is no self, no real self. You look for yourself to prove you exist. Even when you feel like there is no real self, you look for yourself to prove you exist. That's probably because it's scary when the line between you and others can get blurry. Wanting to be understood is also a way to check that you're real. That's probably because it's scary when the line between you and others get blurry. Wanting to be understood is also a way to check that you are real. Feelings become real when they are shared. Feelings become real when they are shared. People turn their past into stories because raw events are hard to organize. Without a story, it's hard to find any meaning. People turn the past into stories because raw events are hard to organize. Without a story, it's hard to find any meaning. There are a lot of true crime podcasts, but enjoying that kind of thing, even in the news, feels disrespectful. After I suggested hitting the blender content in the microwave, I also mentioned doing it with tofu, and she looked at me like I was saying something weird. There are a lot of true crime podcasts, but enjoying that kind of thing, even in the news, feels kinda disrespectful. After I suggest heating the blender content in the microwave, I also mentioned doing it with tofu. She looked at me like I was saying something weird. And she said the tofu was in a strainer. I thought it was obvious I meant heating them together. I thought it was obvious I meant heating them together. This is what happened. When she talks without thinking about the other person at all. This is what happened when she talks without thinking about the other person at all. Recently, I'm not sure. I can't say sure whether I should English. I continue to English. Watching the sports documentary made me realize how much courage it takes to change, and it made me worry again. Watching a sports documentary made me realize how much courage it takes to change. Next, I wanted to give up. So I started to see if there was only podcast I actually wanted to listen to. I wanted to give up, so I searched to see if there was any podcast I actually wanted to listen to. I realized having the courage to change is important. Watching a sports documentary made me realize maybe I'm eating too much soy because the smell is intense. Recently, maybe I'm eating too much soy. The smell is intense. Next, there is no one else doing a podcast in both English and Japanese like me, and it makes me feel lonely. I found some good podcasts and added a lot to my favorite, but I'm unsure whether to listen to them. There's no one else doing a podcast in both English and Japanese like me, and it makes me feel lonely. I found some good podcasts and added a lot to my favorite, but I'm not unsure whether to run to them. It also feels overwhelming because it adds more things to do. I add more things to do. It also feel overwhelming. It add more things to do. I start wondering if I should really focus on improving my English. Yesterday, I realized I had been losing the feeling of valuing Japanese and this podcast. I started wondering if I should really focus on improving my English. Yesterday, I realized I had been losing the feeling of valuing Japanese and this podcast. Studying little by little for the sake of the shows. But I stopped because it didn't feel like I was being my natural self. But I stopped because it didn't feel like I was being my natural self. Studying little by little for the sake of the show feels natural, but I stopped because it didn't feel like I was being my natural self. I used to think that having ability itself is what matters, and that studying doesn't really give you anything to brag about. I used to think that having ability itself is what matters, and that studying doesn't really give you anything to brag about. But now I'm not so sure about that, and that's way of thinking anymore. Now I'm not so sure about that way of thinking anymore. Next, there was few things I unusually became deeply attached to. There are few things I became deeply attached to, and they actually mattered in my life. There were few things I became attached to, and they really mattered to me. English blogging, downloading music. I thought about all of it for months, but it all fell apart. English blogging, downloading music. I thought about all of it for months. For more than 3 months, but it all fell apart. It all fell apart. Next, I wanna beat other people. People wanna beat other people. But that feeling never goes away. It's always there. As a way of proving I exist. That feeling never goes away. It's always there. As a way of proving I exist. Next, recently, a few days ago, I think it's carelessness. My father was having a religious meeting at home, and I felt like I was hearing the voice of the person on the phone again. He was having a religious meeting at home, and I felt like I was hearing the voice of the person on the phone again. I think it's carelessness. Next, I was watching YouTube. A certain adult mother met other mothers, as an adult mother, and she heard the idol came from Kagoshima, and apparently she said, "Me too." But it turned out it was a different place. She just meant we were both from rural areas. She didn't explain it well at all. She had that idol came from Kagoshima, and apparently she said me too. But it turned out it was a different place. She just meant we were both from rural areas. She didn't explain it well at all. Next, I can't trust occult stories, and I can't really trust real world stories either. I can't trust occult stories, and I can't really trust real world stories either. There are just too many lies on YouTube and TV. There are just too many lies on YouTube and TV. Next, I guess I hate losing, and I keep searching for meaning. I guess I hate losing, and I keep searching for meaning. I want to do something by following it my curiously, but I want to quit philosophy. I want to do something by following my curiosity, but I want to quit philosophy. I had a dream, and while looking at the tomatoes in the garden, I felt my life exists because of my parent. I felt my life exists because of my parent. I had a dream, and while looking at the tomato in the garden, I felt my life exists because of my parent. The emotions in dreams feel stronger. Always the emotions in dreams feel stronger. I think my mother also had problem when I was young, but whenever there was a fight, my father got angry at me without listening to my side. I think my mother also had problems when I was young, but whenever there was a fight, my father got angry at me without listening to my side. Next, I thought if I use latest model, it doesn't use much electricity, so I was shocked. If I use latest model heater stove, it doesn't use much electricity. It doesn't use much electricity. So I was shocked to learn it. Next, there was a time when I quit English. Then I started thinking of that learning about Japan might be meaningless. I started thinking that learning about Japan might be meaningless, even though I had found a good podcast. Even though I had found a good podcast. Next, academic background and mastering something used to matter to me. After that, finding work was so hard that I was just struggling to survive. After learning about developmental disorders, I started thinking everything is decided by genetics. I also tried online business. Now I find meaning in talking about not changing and absolute experiments of being withdrawn. I find meaning in not change. And I find meaning in talking about experience of being withdrawn. Shadowing. Academic background and mastering something used to matter to me. After that, finding work was so hard so that I was just struggling to survive. I was struggling to survive. After learning about developmental disorder, I started thinking everything is decided by genetics. I also tried online business. Now I find meaning in not changing. I find meaning in talking about the intense experience I had while being withdrawn. Talking about my intense shadowing experience feels meaningful to me. Next corner is hikimeshi. Yesterday I had potato salad and tamagoyaki Japanese rolled omelette and chicken cutlet, breaded fried chicken, and tempura. It's called kakiage. It had sweet potato. It was good texture, and carrot and burdock root, and tomorokoshi wrote bento. It was the content of bento. As egg omelette, Japanese rolled omelette, and as I said, bread fried chicken. This bento was cheap. It seemed to very cheap, but but it was similar to convenience stores bento. Convenience stores bento is something like that. Thank you for listening. Please follow this program again.